So for today's training, it will be about excavation safety. So I would like to give a brief introduction about our presenter. Our presenter would be Mr. Raul Tolentino. He has an 8 years of experience in the field of quality, health, safety, and environment. He currently works as the QHSE supervisor in a recycling company. He is also an accredited OHS practitioner in the Philippines and UAE, approved EHS supervisor by the Abu Dhabi Waste Management Center, and an IOSH technical member in IOSH since June 2014. And he completed international certifications such as NEBOSH, HSC Engineering, IMS Internal Auditor courses, trained the trainers, and others. And also, he is the FILSA Membership Committee Chairperson and the co-founder of our organization. Okay, so that being said, so once again, we thank you for all the participants who have come today and hoping for a fruitful training from one another. And I will now pass the microphone to Mr. Raul. Thank you so much.
Okay, magandang tanghali sa hapon sa inyong lahat, gabi sa ating mga kababayan dyan sa Pilipinas. I-share ko lang yung screen ko ngayon. And, yeah. Nakikita niyo na, Christian? Di ba?
All right.
Ayan,
Yes.
okay na? Papaset na lang. Yeah.
Okay na, sir? Nakikita niyo na yung slides natin?
Okay na po. Loud, clear po.
Okay. Once again, magandang gabi sa lahat sa ating mga kasama dito sa UAE. Magandang hapon at sa ating mga kasamahan sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat sa pag-attend nyo sa ating excavation training today. Ako po si Mr. Raul, as introduced by Mr. Christian. And diretso na po tayo sa ating presentations. Okay. So, nabanggit na po ni Sir Christian yung house rules natin. Nice ko lang din i-share o emphasize na ito pong training natin is collaborations ng bawat isa. Kung meron po tayong mai-share na experience or additional para sa ikabubuti, kadadagdag ng ating training, please feel free to do so. Okay? So, our learning outcome for today is falls into two the legal requirements and safe system of work of excavations. So what is an excavation? Excavation is the process of moving things like earth, rock, or other materials with tools, equipment, or explosives. Meaning, excavation can be a combination of other processes also. For example, using power tools with hand tools or powered, or equipment like excavator or explosive as referred from the situation. So excavation is merely a combination of other systems as well. So it includes earthwork, trenching, wall shafts, tunneling, and underground. So it means excavation is to dig out and remove. So yun po yung main concept niya. And then, anong purpose ng excavation? Excavation can be used in exploration, for example, in oil explorations and natural gases. So excavation is being done. Mining for these precious metals, and most likely and most applicable in constructions. Please remember that any ground unsupported cannot be relied on, so it might collapse or fall as well. Imagine a cubic meter of soil can weight as 1.5 in excess of 1.5 tons. So here are the situations for this one. So for our definitions of terms, again, excavation is a man-made cavity, trench, or depression formed by earth removal. And a trench is a narrow excavation. The depth is greater than the width not wider than 15 feet. So yung trench is a narrow excavation, mas malalim yung lalim niya kaysa dun sa width niya. Hindi naman lalakas ng 15 feet. Shield is a structure able to withstand cave-in and protect employees. Shoring, a structure that supports the sides of an excavation and protect against cave-in. Sloping, a technique that employs a specific angle of incline of the excavation. The angle varies based on assessment of the impacting site factors. Okay, siguro probably lahat tayo, I will assume na practitioner, so we have to have the knowledge and experience already sa excavations. So the following slides or pictures will show us, for the benefits of those who are not yet familiar with the excavations, we will show the kind of excavation so that you can visualize. For example, in earthwork, there will be a possibility that circumstances or situation that there will be an overhead power lines. There is a possibility that there will be a water deposit during the excavation. So these are the things we can consider as well during the planning. Later on, we will discuss how the planning should be done. So ito po yung example ng earthwork. And then trenching, katulad po ng definitions kanina, mas maliit po yung lapad niya kaysa dun sa lalim niya. Maximum of 15 meter yung lapad niya. Kung mapapansin nyo, trenching can be used by the traditional excavator or manually by the people, or with the use of new technologies of machines like this one. It can readily proceed the excavation as per designed by these machines. So innovations are evolving in excavation industries. So this is an example of workshop. Okay, and tunneling. This tunneling is usually used for example, railway system, just like in Dubai, metro system, it can be used. And these are the situations and in the tunneling situations. Underground and exploration. Exploration is also being done in exploring oil and natural gases. So here are some of the pictures of the example of the excavations. Underground mining. So kung makikita nyo, this area is called shielding. So to prevent from caving in. So ito po yung mga sample ng protections. So let's now go for the legal requirements. Legal requirements can be an international or local law. What is an international law? It refers to conventions, for example, the international labor organizations, and then conventions sa UN, yun po yung under the international. And local law refers to the laws designed or prepared by each of every country, depending on their the demographic locations, situation, politically, and so on as a country. Yan po yun. So for local law, it is divided into two, such statutory requirements and regulatory requirements. What is a statutory requirements? It refers to the law passed by a state or central government. And regulatory requirements refers to a rule issued by the regulatory body appointed by a state or a central government. A classic example of statutory requirements is Republic Act. For example, 1413, yun po yung para sa ating excavation. And then dito naman po sa UAE, we're referring sa statutory requirements as federal law. So federal law applies to 7 emirates of the UAE. And each emirate has its own regulatory. That's why this is the competent authority appointed by the national government. So The requirements for statutory or regulatory requirements is non-negotiable and must be complied. Must be means full compliance. And failure to do so will result to fine or penalty, or even a legal battle or litigations. So, what are the implications of this? Kapag nagkakaroon na tayo ng mga na-fine tayo, na nabigyan tayo, nakasuhan tayo ng national government or local government, it reflects to the organization, loss of reputation, one of the indirect effect of this one. And as a safety practitioner, it is a must that we must know the legal requirements to comply what the minimum requirements para maiwasan natin itong mga penalty, tsaka yung mga legal battle. Okay? So, as a practitioner of an organization, it is our duty to advise our employer what is the current law requirements or updated requirements to our employer. Yun po yun. Kaya hindi po natin pwedeng sabihin na hindi natin alam. Hindi po pwede sabihin na ma-exempt tayo kasi hindi natin alam. Hindi po pwede yun. Dahil it involves what? Property. It involves lalong-lalo na yung mga tao natin. So, hindi po siya pwedeng biruin. So, ito po yung ay nag-google ako, nag-search ako sa ibang mga local requirements regarding excavations for particularly for Philippines is Rule 1413 ng Occupational Safety and Health Standards. So kung titignan po natin to, ito po ay naglalaman patungkol dun sa excavation. So with the rest of the other country, ito naman po yung local requirements nila for excavation. The reason I posted this one is to show that each place or each country represent different situations. So, itong mga batas na to is ginawa akma sa kondisyon ng mga bawat bansa, sa sitwasyon, sa mga nangyayari. Kaya ito po, kung tayo ay napapabilang sa mga bansa na ito, dapat po natin i-comply ang minimum po ito para maiwasan natin yung mga legal issues. So, for our safe system of work, hinati ko po siya sa 4 and then para ma-picture natin step by step kung saan po tayo para po yung direction ng ating training. So for the first one, planning through site-specific risk assessment, plans, and then underground, supposed to be underground and overhead services po dapat to, and safe digging. So, for planning and specific risk, site-specific risk assessment, bakit po kailangan kasama sa planning ang risk assessment? Bakit po? Kasi po, dito makikita natin sa method statement, ang method statement are documents that detail exactly how to carry out the work safely. So, ito po yung step-by-step na gagawin para dun sa scope of work ng excavation. So it may include temporary shoring, material, site preparation, equipment, and tools dito sa method statement. So kapag in-apply na natin ang risk assessment dito sa method statement, kailangan natin i-consider yung geographic location ng activities, ano yung mga possibility, kasi importante po dapat na ma-cover natin yung lahat. Dahil kapag hindi natin ma-cover to lahat, magkakaroon po tayo ng problema along the way sa implementation. Okay? So for site preparation, it may include kung titignan natin kung may mga underground services ba dun sa excavation natin, or probably merong mga OHPL, overhead power lines. Okay, ano bang equipment ang gagamitin natin? Kailangan ba natin ng excavator? Kailangan ba natin ng mga powered tools? Okay, and then ano bang mga materials yung mga gagamitin natin? So it boils down dito sa method statement. Okay? So for ground conditions, importante po ito, a survey of soil prior to excavation by a trained and experienced person will usually provide sufficient information for suitable methods of excavation and support determined. So ito po yung ito po sa lahat sa planning initially, ito yung magbubutas ka ng ground, testingin mo, and then dito mo na rin isasama yung mga underground services sa bagay na to. So for the use of properly managed permit to work system. What is a permit to work system? It is an administrative control. Anong purpose ba ng PTW? To make ensure that the activities is carried out as planned and to monitor as well during the excavation. Yun po yung pinaka-essence itong permit to work. Kaya nga po tayo merong permit issuer and permit receiver. Si permit issuer will ensure that yung nag-receive ng permit nagagawa niya yung requirements na napapaloob dito sa permit to work. And then si permit issuer din ang magsasarado nitong permit to work. Usually ang permit to work sa amin ginagawa namin per shift para hindi napuputol yung continuity. So it depends sa local arrangement ng organization on how are you going to implement the permit to work system. So for underground services, I will not touch this one because on the later next slides we will going to discuss these underground services. Okay, why do we need to include the inspection and examinations of excavations? Because inspections, what? Check kapag nag-inspection tayo, tinitignan po natin yung unsafe condition and unsafe act. And then examining kung nasusunod ba yung ating mga system of work. Kaya ito po ay napaka-importante na araw-araw bago mag-umpisa ng trabaho, kailangan i-check natin dahil ang excavation pwede pong magbago ang condition yan anytime. Kapag halimbawa, for example, umulan kagabi and then magtatrabaho ngayon. So there will be a possibility of a large amount of water dun sa site, sa excavation. So it should be checked first prior ng continuation ng activity. So to sum up, ito pong risk assessment natin, kailangan ma-identify natin yung hazards and paano natin to i-control or bibigyan ng solution. So ito po yung pinaka-purpose nitong risk assessment natin, is to identify the hazards and the risk associated, followed by the control measures to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Okay? Masyado bang mabilis yung pagsasalita?
Okay lang po, sir.
Okay. So we will try to identify the common main hazards in excavation. So, and we will try to also to demonstrate the control measures being practiced by other industries. So for the collapse of sites, so pag nag-excavate tayo, usually meron sides yan. So there will be a possibility na mag-collapse to. So nakikita natin dito sa picture natin, ito yung traditional way of battering the sides ng excavation. So makikita natin na may kahoy pa siya. So it is medyo sa matagal na sinaunang approach na. But if you will see, meron siyang provision ng ladder. So it requires the access and egress. So requirement po ito. So makikita natin dito na dinedemonstrate na may access ladder siya para sa access and egress. Makikita rin po natin meron siyang guardrail. Para saan po ba itong guardrail? So ito po yung para wag mahulog yung ibang tao. Okay? So sa susunod na slide, ngayon po, gumagamit na tayo ng sa trench boxes na po yung ibang ginagamit natin. And ito po ay yung prefabricated na boxes na isushoot mo na lang dun sa dun sa trench para hindi ka na mag-assemble. So na po to, prefabricated na. So if you will see, paano mo siya ilalagay? It's either gumamit ka ng crane para i-lower yung ikasa tong trench boxes. So from this picture, kailangan mo ng crane. So it involves crane safety as well. So as a practitioner, you must understand also the requirements for the crane safety. So hindi na lang po ito excavation, meron ka pang safety, crane safety. At titignan mo rin po itong mga tao, kailangan po ito ay mga competent persons. Okay? Sa susunod po, ito naman po isang klase, yung hydraulic system. So, puro hydraulic na lang siya, ikinakasa lang siya, mas madali siyang ikabit. Kung mapapansin nyo, meron din siyang provision ng access. Okay? Meron siyang mga cones para barrier against the traffic. Okay? So, ang barrier at ang paglalagay naman nitong protection nito is depende dun sa assessment natin. Kung ang situation hindi naman matao or hindi siya ganun daanan, so we can look for a minimum requirements. But kung ang risk assessment natin nagsasabi na kulang yan, kailangan natin dagdagan. So nagdidepende po tayo sa outcome ng ating risk assessment. So, tungkulin po ng employer na protektahan o mag-construct ng mga protective system. Ito po ay responsibilidad ng employer para sa kanilang mga tao. Okay? Para sa mga equipment protection. Katulad ng sa shield, kailangan mo trench box or yung hydraulic, yan po yung mga requirements, shoring and sloping. Kaya ito po ay parte ng ating mga employer. So tatandaan po natin na hindi safety ang may responsibilidad nito. Responsibilidad natin i-monitor at kailangan i-provide ito ng ating employer. Yan po yung responsibilidad ng ating employer. So, plus handling of materials and equipment, tamang installation and removal, protection ng employees at excavation. It boils down to a win-win situation para sa ating lahat. Ito po yung requirements ng protective system. And then, correct design of sloping and benching system, correct design of system support, shield system, and other protective systems should be done during the planning. Hindi po dapat gawin yan kapag nag-excavate na tayo. Lahat po ito is parte ng planning, so we can make our drawing boards, prepare and everything, consider, and afterwards reviewing bago natin gawin. So ito po yung yung tema ng pagtatrabaho natin. Kaya kailangan hindi kung kailan nagtatrabaho, mali po yun. Dahil mas malapit sa aksidente pag ganun po. So, overrunning of vehicles is the main hazard. So paano natin posibleng hindi makita ng mga operator yung excavation? So there will be a chance na pwedeng mahulog yung mga equipment or mga vehicles. So ano kailangan natin gawin? Barrier should be placed near the edge of the excavation at least 1.5 meters. Bakit 1.5? Kasi pag masyadong mabigat naman yung barrier natin at ilagay natin sa edge, pwedeng mag-tendency na mag-fall din to, mag-cave in. So, kasama pa yung barrier mo dun sa magko-collapse na pwedeng may mga taong nagtatrabaho. So, at least 1.5 depending dun sa soil conditions o sa ground condition, yung distance niya dun sa edge. Person falling into the excavation. So, paano naman natin to maiiwasan na may mahulog na tao? So kailangan maglagay po tayo ng provision of guardrail or barrier. Ang guardrail po dapat meron kang main guardrail, mga kulang-kulang 1 meter above the edge of the excavation, and yung intermediate guardrail, yung panggitna, nasa almost half meter from the excavation. Kailangan po ito para wala pong magkaroon ng chance na mahulog. Kaya lang, ang problema minsan, yung guardrail basta na lang sinabit. Is it sufficient and stable enough para i-hold? So kailangan po to sa inspection. Makikita natin sa inspection to kung tama ba or kailangan mag-adjust sa installation sa tsaka erection nito. And then yung as well, makikita nyo sa picture, may mga talaga hindi nawawala yung access and egress. Ito po yung ladder, yung purpose niya. Ngayon, materials falling into the excavation. There are two things. Possibly yung in-excavate nating material o yung spoiled materials na tinanggal mo dun sa excavation, naturally ilalagay mo muna sa gilid yan, di ba? But we need to understand that there should be a zone of influence wherein ito po yung mag-i-interact o mag-cause. Possibly kapag nagdagdagan ng weight itong area na to, pwede siya mag-collapse or mag-cave in. So we need to have a sufficient distance, at least 1 meter from the edge of the zone of influence. Hindi po dun sa edge ng excavation. So para maprotektahan natin yung mga sasakyan na dumadaan dun sa excavation and then yung materials. Hanggat maaari, kapag yung natanggal mo na yung mga spoiled materials, kung pwede naman i-load ka agad sa dump truck and then para maialis. It is a good practice na ganun at huwag natin patagalin. Kasi nagpa-pile siya. So may bearing weight siya. So it will cause possible cave-in. For example, itong nasa picture natin is a classic example of inadequate support. Wala siyang access and egress. So kapag mayroon taong nagtatrabaho rito, by chance, pwede mag-collapse. Kapag natabunan ng mga tao rito, so it is an accident which is liable ang ating safety officers. Why? Bakit liable? Kasi it should be identified sa inspection tsaka sa checking yung situation na to. Kung hindi mo nakita ng safety officer to o ng safety practitioner, may problema sa sistema, sa inspection. Ito po, and kapag yung ansasakyan, hindi mo siya binarricade at halos nasa edge lang siya. So if you will see, this part of the excavation, nag-collapse siya. Kaya naging unstable yung truck, kaya nag-overturn siya. So yan po yung requirements natin. Hindi siya kinonsider dito sa ating zone of influence, and then plus 1 meter more palabas para dun sa distance ng truck and then yung soiled material. Okay, access and egress, gaya po na sa mga nasabi na natin kanina sa unang mga slides. Ang access and egress is dalawa po yan, para sa pedestrian, para sa vehicle. As much as possible, separate po dapat yung access and egress ng vehicle and pedestrian. Bakit kamo? To avoid accident or collisions or masagasaan yung mga tao. Kasi the more na lumalaki yung equipment, the possibility na hindi makita ng driver or ng operator yung taong na naglalakad. Dapat merong separate designated pedestrian talaga. And then it is a safe means of getting into and climbing out of an excavation must be provided. So ito po yung requirements natin sa access and egress. Okay, when we're doing excavation, there will be a possibility of what? Hazardous atmosphere. For example, Flammable gases may arise naturally, hydrogen sulfide, methane, or sulfur. Ito po yung mga natural na gas na dahil nag-excavate tayo, mag-i-escape siya na nasa ilalim siya ng ground. So there will be a possibility na lumabas ito. Or there will be a possibility of leak from a nearby pipes. Yung mga naka-install na sa underground services ng mga pipes, especially sa mga gases. Dahil sa over the period of time, pwedeng na-corrode na yung pipes. So chances of leaks are already available. And any gases heavier than air, ito po ay mag-a-accumulate sa ilalim. Katulad ng H2S, okay? Yan po yung isa sa karakteristik ng H2S. Kaya po, ano ang dapat natin gawin prior magko-commence ka ng excavation? Gas test should be carried out before started and continually as for progress. Meaning, bago mag-umpisa at habang tumatakbo yung trabaho, kailangan minomonitor yung atmosphere sa excavation. And then, okay, na-test natin, meron or wala. Kung merong gas na presence of flammable or hindi makakabuti na gas para sa ating mga tao, we should provide ventilation. What kind of ventilation are we going to provide as per our risk assessment? So it can be a blower to blow clean air into the excavation and dissipate the gas para maging breathable or adequate yung breathable air natin. Or there are other also, which is a local exhaust ventilation, if applicable as per our risk assessment. So marami pong ways para ma-control to. Or you can issue an SCBA, yung breathing apparatus, if required. Kaya po, depende po yan dun sa assessment ng risk assessment natin. So here are these possible solutions or control measures for this hazardous atmosphere. Undermining adjacent structures. There will be a possibility that we will do excavation or to build another structure in an urban area or a fully developed community wherein structures are already erected or already available. So we must take care to see that excavation work does not affect the stability of any adjacent structures. Because kaya kailangan natin sa planning ito dahil kung during our excavations naapektuhan yung stability ng structure ng building, it will be, of course, a liability to the company. So we must be very careful in doing this one. So this one should be structural engineers should be involved on this one. So how are we going to carry out the excavation without affecting the stability and integrity of the structures? Another main hazard is flooding. Okay, groundwater and underground water pipe can present a potential flooding. During our excavation, underground services can be there. It can be a water pipe. It can be a gas pipe. Okay, so for water pipe, once na disturb natin yan, nag-excavate tayo, gumamit tayo ng equipment, it can damage and rupture or causing a influx of water. So how are we going to do this one? Or by kung nag-excavate tayo during ng tag-ulan, there will be chance that the excavated area will be filled with water. So how are we going to resolve this one for us to continue the excavation? So we can adapt the dewatering system to use to remove the water. But of course, the watering system is another system incorporated. Kumbaga, kinakailangan natin familiar din also. So as I said, excavation is composed probably of different systems. So kailangan competent na mga persons na gagawa nito. All the requirements are being met. Okay. So for underground services, hazards, I cut a table from other sources that from electricity cables, what are the hazards? So the hazards can be explosive effects of breaking current when live cable is pierced or crashed. So electrocution, direct electrocution is um, possible for this one, and consequential of fires. For gas pipe, a damage may cause gas leak immediately, and upon available of an ignition, it can create a flammable atmosphere which can cause a fire or explosions. Depending dun sa cavity ng excavation, kung anong klaseng gas. So these are the possibilities that it can happen. The risk associated for this one. Water pipes, okay, influx of water, flooding is the hazards and may result of drowning people working in the excavation. So sewage is rarely pumped under pressure, but it is normally gravity fed. So anong risk meron dito? Risk of contamination. Biological agents present in this fecal sludge, ito po yung magiging epekto. And then, may mga workers na nagtatrabaho, so they will be exposed on these biological agents. Other pipelines, flammable, toxic, inert gases, liquids under pressure, or combination of all of this. There is a possibility that electricity, gas pipes, and water pipes will be on one same area. So there will be a possible of combinations of hazards of this to happen. So we really need to identify these services. On our following slides, we're going to identify how are we going to do this identification of the underground services. Okay, lastly, ito po yung laging common na hinahanap. Information, training, this should be instruction, not information. Information, training, instruction, and supervision, known as ITIS. All people or workers working in this excavation must understand, must have the information, must have the training, and properly supervised by a competent person. They must understand the risk associated working in excavation, so that for themselves is to have this self-regulations on how are they going to work safely from themselves. Importante po ito. Minsan nakakalimutan na ito dahil due to complacency, sometimes people are already working for how many years, even decades, that they are already working in this one, but still complacency might contribute to accident, and this kind of perception should not be. So we need to reinforce information in our operatives regarding these things about the risk associated in excavation. So if you want, we can have one questions or other things regarding planning through site specific before we're going to the plans, or do we need to proceed? Go, and one time we will entertain all the questions. Moderator, what ano bang maganda? Tapusin na, and then later mag-entertain ng mga questions.
So far, sir, wala pa namang masyadong tanong dito sa chat box. So I believe we can proceed na lang po muna sa training.
Okay, okay. So we will give time. Actually, I calculated itong training natin. It will not consume 2 hours. So for us to have a discussions, and if we have time, I have one case study for us to discuss, so we can share our experiences and regarding this one. Okay, so let us proceed. Plans. What is this plans? These are the buried surfaces, plans of the buried surfaces na kailangan nating meron tayo. For example, sa Nawasa, sa Meralco, at yung mga utility companies, dito naman sa Dubai, yung may tinatawag na DEWA, pag DEWA, nandun na yung tubig tsaka yung kuryente, pati yung sewage niya. Bakit kailangan natin makakuha nito? Para ma-identify natin sa excavation kung nasaan ito. But, bakit kailangan natin to? Para meron tayong guide. Okay? And then, service owner should be able to provide readable current plans showing the line and depth as much as possible. Itong mga service owners na to, they should be the one to provide the plan for a specified area regarding these buried services. It can be on water, electrical, telecommunications, okay? And we must also understand that the plans may be given to us is not updated or outdated. So there will be a possibility that changes or modification has already been done, but it was not documented. So as the contractor or the one who will commence the excavation, we should take consideration that the plans may be outdated or not. So we must take how are we going to proceed on these excavations. Madi-discuss po natin yan dun sa identification ng mga buried underground services. Okay, so kaya sa wala, kahit na outdated siya or if not, plans can however give a useful indication where to start tracing with locating devices. So kahit na outdated siya, at least we have these documents or we are positive that on a certain location, we can start tracing with the use of locating devices. Otherwise, we will go for a random checking. So ito po yung importance kung bakit kailangan makakuha tayo ng plans para ma-incorporate natin sa planning natin ng excavation, especially during the identifications of these services. So underground services, cable and pipes, the main types of detectors can be used are there are a lot of detectors that can be used depending on the applicability of these detectors in detecting the underground services. It can be ham detectors, radio frequency detectors, transmitter receiver instrument, metal detectors, and ground probing radar. Regardless of the type, the one we should consider is the degree of the training, skills, and experience ng operator na gagamit nito. Kahit na anong klase, kapag nagamit ng tama, correctly done yung pag-detect ng mga underground, it will be very helpful. That's why locating devices will depend on the operator. Hearing acuity, the characteristic ng device, applicable ba siya dun sa gagamitin o sa dinidetect. So, yung lalim, haba nung services na para malaman natin yung effectivity nung gagamitin nating equipment. And then, ano ba ang effect nito sa ibang services na nakalagay. So, all of these things we need to consider prior na mag-commence tayo ng identifications, because para maiwasan natin yung overspending, and then choosing not the appropriate detectors. So it boils down sa planning talaga. And then the person who's going to do the tracing. Otherwise, kung incompetent at mali yung ginamit nating mga detectors, what will be the effect? We will not probably identify correctly what is the exact location of these ground services. So when we started excavations, it might hit the services and it will be more a problem, more power needed, manpower to rectify, and then of course cost implication yan. So these are some of the embedded issues when we made a mistake in identifying these underground services. So in identification of underground services, we can refer on this small flow chart para a simple guide for us to understand where we are heading or in direction ng ating pagtatrabaho. Kasi kailangan natin mag-refer from the start yung sa plans, yung buried services. And then we discussed already yung locating these underground services using different kinds of locating devices, and how are we going to do. And then kung nakita na ba yung services, yes or no, reasonable pa sa na kailangan pang hindi makita, kailangan pa natin, kasi ang gagawin po natin dito is magdidig tayo ng mga trial holes for this to be detected. So from this flowchart, meron po siyang cycle hanggat hindi natin nakukuha yung tama o yung exact location. So hindi tayo pwede mag-carry out ng excavations. Ang suggestions po lagi, huwag tayo mag-excavate ng gagawa ng excavation over sa taas ng mga underground services. It should be along parallel siya para hindi maiwasan yung ma-disturb tsaka yung stability nung cable. Kasi once na nag-start na tayo ng excavation at na-expose na sila, kailangan natin maglagay ng mga support para dito. And then yung use of tools na kakailanganin natin sa excavation. So ito po yung is a simple flowchart on how are we going to carry out the identification of underground services. Of course, all of these things will depend on the competency and then ng operator. Kahit na maganda yung plano natin, kung mali yung ginagamit nating locating devices, hindi siya appropriate, and then hindi competent yung tao. So what will be the expectations for this one? So yun po yun. Okay. So we're going now to the safe digging. So tapos na po tayo dun sa pagpaplano. Kinonsider na natin yung mga possible hazards and associated risk. Then nag-refer na tayo dun sa plano ng mga services, kung nasaan sila. Ginawa na natin yung location ng mga services. Now it's the time para mag-umpisa ng excavations. So what is the safe digging? Okay, excavation may proceed after the confirmation of the positions of buried services. When we say confirmation, exact. So kapag mag-excavate na tayo, yan yung pumapasok natin, sinasabi natin parallel. So hindi tayo directly above the buried services. And then dito na po papasok yung mga handheld power tools, selections, and then kung if we need na mas mabilis o malaki yung i-excavate natin, so we have to consider the mechanical excavators. Okay? So from this, dapat ma-identify natin during the planning kung anong klaseng excavator, anong klaseng handheld power tools. Kasi sa handheld power tools, we have to understand the effect of noise and vibration as well that will affect our operatives. So, sa selection, kailangan na-consider na natin kung ano bang epekto nito dun sa sa tao. Ano ba to? Ababa 85 decibels ba siya? Masyado ba siya maingay? Kailangan ba natin mag-provide ng PPE para ng earmuff para ma-less yung yung laki ng decibels. So these are the considerations we have to consider as well. So we should repair to separate safety requirements when using handheld power tools and mechanical excavators. Kasi for example, dun sa noise, baka kailangan pa natin ng octave analysis para dun sa computation nung tawag dun sa attenuation nung earmuff na gagamitin ng mga tao. So ito po yung mga kailangan natin i-consider as practitioner as well. So kung makikita nyo, habang magtatrabaho ka na, lumalaki yung mga requirements. So the safety practitioner must be bold enough to understand all of these things. Otherwise, it will result to something issues na hindi natin gusto pare-parehas. Okay? Excavation should run alongside the service rather than directly above it. Nabanggit na po natin kanina. Final exposure of the service by horizontal digging using handle. Okay, kapag nakita na natin, lumabas na yung mga services, kailangan gumamit tayo ng, for example, hand tools na lang is recommended. Bakit kamo? For us to control the force applied on the underground services. Or for example, we can use yung mga pala, rounded siya, para pag pinapala mo, control mo yung pag sipa mo dun sa and then hindi siya sharp para hindi niya masugatan yung mga, kung merong mga electrical cables. Or we can use this pressurized equipment, air jet, para ma-clear mo yung mga underground services. So these are the options during excavations. So as practitioner, it should reflect on our inspections, checking itong mga bagay na to para continuously ma-identify natin yung unsafe condition para dun sa ating mga tao. Failure to correctly identify exposed services can cause accident as well. Usually, yung block, ina-assume natin sa live electrical cable po yan. Iron and steel pipes should be treated as gas pipes. Kapag naman continuously welded yung steel pipe, it should be treated as high pressure liquid. So, ito po yung mga mga identifications para ma-identify natin sa ating pagtatrabaho. And this information must be communicated to our operatives. So, importante po talaga itong ITIS. Kaya kung mapapansin niyo po, especially sa construction, meron pong tinatawag na toolbox talk. Prior ng trabaho, dinidiscuss ng foreman or ng safety, especially dun sa mga specialized or dun sa permit to work system, dinidiscuss po itong mga bagay na to para ma-aware ang mga tao magtatrabaho dito. Yun po. So, most likely, we're done. Tama, isang oras. Meron po akong may study po ang nilagay dito for us to stimulate kung ano po yung napag-aralan natin, kung ano pa yung nag-embed sa atin para, for example, ito sa case study, how are we going to respond on this situation? It is a typical questions, and then it involves understanding and competency ng practitioner on how are we going to do with this one. For example, the case study goes like this. an excavation is required on an existing factory floor. It means meron ng existing na structures and everything to repair the damaged water main. So meaning, nasa ilalim to. So anong tanong? Outline the hazards and corresponding risks that may be created by the excavation of work. Plus, upon identifications, ano yung control measures? Usually, ito po ay yung it will fall on maintenance. Dahil tapos naman na yung structure and everything. So, they need to do or a task because of this damaged water main. So ano po ang gagawin natin? So moderator, can we open the floor for them for probably to share some of their suggestions or apprehensions sa ating case study before we show the possible answers for this one. So let us participate to share what will be our understanding for this kind of case study, for this case study. And other questions will be entertained as well.
Okay po, sir. So if there's anyone interested po to answer this case study, can you please unmute your microphone and please, as much as possible, please open your camera. Si Mr. Mark Anthony Flores po. Sir, meron po kayong... Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Magandang gabi po.
Okay. Yes po, sir.
Ang risk assessment po natin, unang-una po natin gagawin is pwede po tayo muna mag-gas test dyan.
Okay, mag-gas test po. Sir, ano to hindi pa tayo nag-e-excavate. Ang sitwasyon na nasira yung main water pipeline sa floor ng factory. So wala pa tayong sinisimulang gas excavations.
Ayun po muna, sir, yung plan ng buong yung area muna. Titingnan muna natin yung buong yung plan.
Okay, sir. Tapos ano pong pwede ako magtanong sir sa inyo ng continuous na para matumbok natin yung yung hazards. Ano ba yung hazards? Ano ba yung nakikita mong hazards dito, sir? Tsaka yung corresponding risk sa trabaho na to. Pwede tayong magpa-assume possibility. Wala pong problema.
Ang una ko pong nakikitang hazard dyan ay siyempre yung tubig po, yung umaapon na tubig. Kasi damage na po yung water main damage na.
So influx of water
influx
upon
water.
Yes. Okay, yes, sir. And then ano pa ba from other participants if you want to say something. Hindi po ito paraan gine-gauge ko ano po yung understanding ng bawat isa. Wala pong mali, wala pong tama rito. It's for us to collaborately understand, share how are we going to deal this case study. Yun po ang intentions itong case study. Hindi po kung ano man. So kung ano po yung sasabihin nyo, hindi po natin sasabihin na mali yan. Sige lang po, mag-ano po tayo, mag-participate, and then after that we can entertain questions regarding excavation. Nandito po yung mga kasamahan natin sa organizations na fully experienced po. Sige po.
Sino po? Sino po hindi makapag-unmute? Raise nyo na lang po yung hand nyo kung hindi kayo makapag-unmute. And you can also chat po in our chat box if in case. Yes po, Sir Rene or Sir Ramon, naka-unmute po ata kayo. Meron kayong gustong sabihin, sir?
Sir, may audio ba ako?
Yes po, sir.
Yes, collapse po ng structure. Kasi since na-damage na yung main pipe, saturated na yung ilalim ng yung lupa natin. So any excavation, maaaring mag-collapse yung nearby structure, yung kung ano yung malapit doon sa paghuhukayan.
Sige po. Sige po, sir. Salamat po. Salamat po. Anyone? Please feel free to...
Meron yata moderator Christian, meron yata mga comments na sumasagot siguro sa chat box. Pwede sigurong basahin.
Okay po.
Siguro ako ma-share ko lang siguro para magtuloy-tuloy rin, no. Siguro yung flooding, no. Dahil nga nag-ano sa water main, and secondly in contact sa mga electrical o energized electrical current, no. So dapat nga i-apply nga yung mag-isolate ka kagad, i-bypass mo yung main para at least ma-close mo agad yung flow ng water, no. Siguro yung dagdagan na lang nila.
Okay. Salamat, Pres. Tama po yan. Ayos po.
Hello. Yes
po. Yes po.
May dinudugtong ko lang yung sharing to dito sa excavation. Kasi nung ako'y nagtrabaho sa Bangi with Ilocos, yung so pagka yung flooding at kabubuwas lang yung semento, naku, merong agad sira yung mga yung mga semento, hindi pa gaano natuyo. Yan po yung problema doon pagka flooding. Ngayon, may plano dapat na mayroong motor, yung pang ship naka-ready na kagad.
Dewatering po.
Opo, dewatering tawag doon, sir.
Opo.
Kasi nagtrabaho.
Sir, good evening.
Salamat po.
Sir, good evening.
Yun lang po ang maibag.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Sir, good
sir.
evening. Sir, good evening.
Sa akin po, kasi sabi dito is existing factory floor. So, more likely, sir, pwedeng yung area is enclosed. So, yung risk din yung maingay, i-consider din anong gagamiting pang-excavate. Then, yung sa vibration niya, baka ma-trigger niya yung earthquake. Meron ka rin sa building, sir, earthquake, baka i-consider din. Baka kasi biglang drilling, mati-trigger niya yon, baka mag-cause pa ng false emergency alarm yung building. And yun lang po, sir, ma-share ko.
Salamat, Sir Bambi. Possible
Sir,
po sa inyo yung vibration. Opo, tama po yun. Yes, sir.
Sir, good evening.
Sige, sir. Sir Peter. Sige po.
Good evening. Siguro, sir, no, the hazard is if there's a repair damage of the water main. I think, for my opinion, sir, immediately there should be immediate coordination with the other discipline.
Opo. Particular po sa discipline, sir, para po maklaro po natin, sir.
Because the water, if there's a water, then there's also the electricity. Magkaroon ng so immediate coordination with the other discipline.
Opo. So, yes, sir. Sige po.
To avoid the hazard and the risk para magkaroon agad na then prior to the proceeding the excavation.
Okay. Sige po. Salamat po, Sir Peter. Dito po sa chat box, kay Sir Ramon Musni, ang sinabi po ni Sir Ramon is hazard, slip, trip and fall, and noise due to drilling of floor. Sige, salamat po, Sir. And kay Sir Julius Torres Canonigo naman, boarding up will protect the people around the area not involved with the project. Salamat po, Sir Julius. And Kay Sir Francis Albert naman, I think we have to consider if there are machines around that might be affected. Okay po, salamat sir. And balik po tayo kay Sir Ramon Musni. Obtain first permit to work. Close the main valve to start excavation. Okay. Okay po. And then, sino ka ba? Si Sir Derwin naman from Senior Quest, sabi niya is control first the damaged water mainline applying lotto. Okay ka, parehas po ng sinabi kay Sir Albino, mag-lockout or isolation po. Sabi naman kay ni Sir Raymond J. Lumba, sleep on the floor for the workers and damage of property maybe. Okay, salamat po. And lahat ba na nakikita ko? Nasa lapit pala ako, hindi ko ginagamit. What is this?
Bato, humingi na ng tulong.
Ha?
Humingi na ng tulong sa salamin. Brad, natutuwa ako kasi yung mga tinatanong mo pang Bosch diploma na parang na-practice yung mga audience natin dito, mga participants na naasa kagad.
Actually, pare, tinanong to din sa examination, kaya naalala. Oo. And
pero maganda siguro kung dinitil, alimbawa, outline hazards and corresponding risks. Dapat doon muna, after nun, another outline naman ng control measure. Kasi nag-halo-halo yung sagot eh. Meron na sumagot ng control. May mga...
Okay lang, sir. Oo. Kasi meron naman na research. So, para ma-discuss natin, sir. Sige.
Maganda siya. Maganda.
Tapusin lang natin, sir, yung iba. Ang sabi ni Sir Edgar G. Gonzaga, inform all workers around the area. Okay, that's good po. And si Sir Ramon uli, sabi niya, control measure, provide water pump, extra light, TBT for worker. Sabi ni Sir J. Rim Regala, presence of other existing utilities. Kay Sir Bambi Jan Buhong, additional sir, yung ibang under services baka matamaan during excavation. So, need to refer sa as-built plan. Okay po, sir, tama po. So, meron last si Ma'am Jeneline Santos. Tanong lang po. Halimbawa po may... Sige, basahin natin to. Ay, Ma'am Jeneline, maya po natin sagutin to. At tapusin lang natin tong si case study natin and then we will going to attend on that one. Okay, siguro tignan natin yung yung sagot or hindi to sagot, ito po yung possible na sagot. Lahat po ng sinabi natin is related, napapanahon, umaakma siya sa sitwasyon. And then ito kung anong sagot ay hindi po ibig sabihin na ito yung tama. Ito po yung mga isa rin possibility dahil ito po ay case study. Kaya tignan po natin. So hazards and associated risk. Ito po, katulad ng sinabi ng isa nating kasamahan kanina, ang influx of water into the excavation could lead drowning of workers. Pwede po natin idagdag dyan yung sinabi ni Sir Albino na kapag mayroong electrical cable na may damage, so it might lead also sa electrocutions. Yun po. So, absence of guardrails or barrier or unsuitable and insufficient strength of guardrails could lead to person falling into excavation. So, kung wala pong guardrails tsaka yung suitable protections, so pwede pong mahulog yung any stuff sa factory. Unprotected excavation site could lead to risk of collapse of material to the worker in the trench. So, ito po yung mga na-discuss natin, excavated spoil and other materials stored near the site of the excavation. So, hazards din po yan. So, pwedeng mag-cause siya ng collapse. And yung loose material may fall into the excavation where workers working being struck by a falling object. So, ito po yung mga possible. In case na meron pong flammable gas pipeline dun sa underground services. So, pwede pong ito yung maging hazards na leaking of gases heavier than air could lead to inhalation of the workers. So ito po yung mga possible na hazards na associated sa risk. Okay po ba tayo rito? And then if we will see, punta po tayo dun sa control, kailangan po meron tayong state of system of work para sa task na to. Kung wala, meron po tayong tinatawag na job safety analysis na tinatawag na wherein yung job safety analysis, ginagamit po yan para dun sa mga hindi unroutine activities na sinasabi. Yun po, unroutine. So we need to assess prior ng excavation dahil hindi naman siya routine. So maaring walang method statement na in place, so we can use this job safety analysis. And then from there, we have to refer on the plans, diagram of the water system, and other ground services, and we have to locate what the damaged water main for safe digging process. So we just need first to identify for this one. And planning through work site-specific risk assessment, ito po yung job safety analysis na binabanggit ko kanina. And then kung ang excavation po is classified as cold work, so meron pong permit to work yan. Kaya kailangan yung permit issuer ensure that hazards and risks are well addressed and proper control measures are applied or addressed, communicated to the all operatives. Okay? And then failure to identify exposed services, basta na lang siguro tayong nag-excavate, can cause common accidents. And then hahaba yung trabaho, yung manpower, equipment, and everything. It will be more than in cost implication. Meron po siyang cost implications. So kapag yung failure to identify export services, kung electrical, gas or sa telecommunication, dapat naka-detail po dun sa plan. Okay po? And then, pwede na tayo magsimula ng safe digging practice. If possible, to close the main valve of the water system. Ito po yung, kapag ganyan po may mga nasirang sa tubig, ang una pong ginagawa dyan, meron po mga valve yan, isinasara na po kagad yan para hindi mag-continuous yung damage niya, mag-flooding siya, or ma-contain na yung nandun na tubig na lumabas na, so hindi na madagdagan. So yun po yung mga possible. And then mag-dig tayo. Ito pong nakasulat dito is mga possibility lang ito. Kaya kailangan kung hindi ka sure dun sa kailangan magdag ng trial holes para using suitable hand tools para ma-confirm natin yung mga position nung damaged water pipe. So kailangan i-mark mo siya yung area na rin. And then excavation should run alongside, not directly above it. Yun po. Spade and shovels with curved edges are better para po hindi makasira ng iba pang mga services. And digging techniques should ease them into the ground with gentle foot pressure. Ito po yung nasa na. Ito sa operative na po natin. Control na po ng operative to. Kaya hindi po dapat nagtatrabaho ang mga tao or operatives kapag wala silang IDIS, information tsaka yung competency para trabahuin to. And then at the same time, inspection and examination of excavations should be periodically being done. Kaya minomonitor po dapat yan. Okay, kung masyado pong malalim, then pwede na po natin i-apply yung mga wall protections para ma-carry out natin yung pagre-repair ng main water pipeline. So yun po yung yun yung essence ng natin ng case study. So para ang importante po, ang pinapakita po kasi rito is yung way kung paano gawin. Kailangan magpaplano tayo, i-identify natin itong mga bagay na to, para pag ginawa na natin o i-consider natin yung mga equipment na gagamitin natin, para pag ginawa mo yung excavation, isang ano lang, isang straightforward lang yung pagtatrabaho natin. And kung may makikita tayong problema along the way dahil nag-inspection tayo, then we have to rectify, then we have to act, then we have to respond dun sa mga situations para ma-contain natin yung situation. So, matapos natin yung task ng maayos, yun po. And then, any questions? Dun po kanina sa chat box, merong nag-question.
Yes po, yung tanong po kay Ma'am Jeneline Santos.
Opo. Sige po. Ano po ba yan?
Ito po. Halimbawa po, may soil testing na naganap bago po magkaroon ng excavation. Required kaming sumama or makikooperate para makita kung gaano po katigas ang lupa or kung gaano po ito kalambot yung hukay.
Okay. The question is kung kailangan sumama. Ngayon, ang question is kung yung gagawa ng soil testing is competent, okay, and then experience naman siya, may options naman kayo na pwedeng sumama kasi at the end of the day, after ng testing na yan, gagawa naman sila ng report, especially kung mga third party sila. Try to understand that itong mga third party, once na may ginawa sila mga document, it is a legal document na they will take responsibilities on that one. So kapag mali yung ginawa nila, the client may contest the report itself. Yun po. Yung pong pagsama is option nyo na po yung kung gusto nyo makita yung process ng so soil testing, well and good, wala pong problema. Kung gusto nyo matutunan o makita yung actual na proseso. Yun po yung aking sagot doon.
Siguro,
Addition, sir.
Chairman Raul, oo. Siguro in addition, okay lang yun kasi sa safety, no, ang tawag natin dyan, yung tinatawag na due diligence, no?
Yes.
Pagka nag-due diligence ka na unang-una, ina-assume mo na yung contractor, no, for example, yung magkakandak ng testing, ay ginagawa niya yung trabaho niya. Second, walang mga tinatawag na anomaly, no? Yun. So walang problema ron. Oo.
So, kung meron pa kayong question, sige lang po para mapagtulong-tulungan natin.
Yes po sir, meron pong isang question galing po dun sa live Facebook natin ngayon. Galing po kay Mr. Gerald Bravo. Under safe digging process in an industrial site, can we ask or request a copy of floor plan on a nearby establishment to identify any pipeline along or across the area?
Actually, yung mga pipeline, sir, ano yan under services po yan, utility services po yan. It's either owned by electrical company. For example, dito sa Pilipinas, kung sa Nawasa ba siya, sa Meralco siya, you can ask for this plan. But kung gagawa kayo ng excavation near the structure ng premises ng ibang kumpanya, you can coordinate with their engineering team, especially sa civil or dun sa contractor na gumawa para magkaroon sila ng collaborations or meeting to discuss on how are they going to further commence the excavation. Dalawa po yan. Basta po sa mga services, utilities, yun po yung may ownership na tinatawag po tayo dyan, yung kumpanya po. Sila po yung may mga plano. At they can suggest as well on how are you going to do so. From this, you will get the right information and right approach for this one. Yeah.
Tama po. Kaya lang, ang nagiging problema, no, kaya dito sa Dubai, no, share ko lang bro, yung practice natin.
Yes, no problem.
Pag may mga excavation, no, talagang they have to go to authority, no, Dubai Municipality for example. Then i-check doon yung mga sa sewage line, sewer line, ganon. Then pupunta sila sa RTA para naman sa Road and Traffic Authority, no. Then pupunta naman sila rin sa DEWA, yung sinabi mo, para sa sa mga electrical So complete 'yun. Bawat bird services o utility services na dadaanan dapat meron kang permit doon.
Yes,
So yun,
yes.
yung something as a safety practitioner, yun yung something na dapat mong alamin kung ano yung mga procedure na ini-employ natin o ini-implement sa Pilipinas. Para at least ensure natin na compliant tayo sa anumang excavation activity. Then follow na yung mga safe system of work and yung mga risk assessment and implementation ng hazards and risk control para naman compliant ka rin naman sa RA 11058 o sa OSH law.
Yes, yes. Actually, yes. Kung required talaga ng regulatory na kumuha tayo ng permit, we have to. That is compliance po mga kasama. And then bago tayo mag-commence, kailangan meron po tayong mga permit na to. Gaya ng sinabi ni Sir Albino, tama po yun. Tama po yun. Huwag po tayong yung katulad ng Jollibee, na bida-bida. Malalagay po tayo sa disgrasya po nun. Sige po.
Yes po,
Tama
Sir
ka, sir.
Peter. Meron pa kayong gustong sabihin, Sir Peter Rodriguez?
Yes, tama yan, sir. Prior to proceed the excavation, dito sa Pilipinas, sir, meron talaga tayo as per building code. Mag-submit muna sa local authority.
Yes, sir.
Example sa LGU. Prior to proceed the excavation and everything. That's why there's a coordination with all the disciplines and approval of the excavation permit.
Sige po.
Okay.
Si
Maraming
Sir
salamat,
Michael. Si
Peter.
Sir Michael po
Sir
yata,
Michael
di
po.
ba?
Yes po.
Okay.
Ask ko nga siya. Yes po, Sir Michael. Unmute na lang po kayo ng microphone. Hello? Hello, Sir Michael?
Yes,
Ayan.
sir.
Okay.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, tanong ko lang, halimbawa yung magdi-diggings ka o kaya maglalagay ka ng panibagong structure. Tapos doon sa katabi mo, may mga mataas na structure. Paano magiging approach po doon?
Sir, ano yan eh? It involves the design team na yan, sir. Especially mga high-rise po yan. Unang-una, may mga sinasubmit tayong plano dyan. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, nagsasubmit po tayo dyan sa, for example, sa City Hall, nagpapa-approve po tayo ng mga plano natin. Ngayon, on our part, kung tayo yung gagawa ng excavation, we must appoint a team regarding sa designs kung ano yung suggestions o ano yung plano natin na i-confirm natin sa regulatory kung ma-approvean ba nila or what. And at the same time, prior to that one, pwede tayo mag-consultation dun sa katabing structure. Kasi sir, this excavation will involve property damage if ever na magkakaroon ng collapse of structure. So malaking usapin po yan. Kailangan bago natin umpisahan yan, dumaan po tayo sa tamang proseso, kumuha tayo ng permit or what, and then kung kailangan natin ng discussions para dun sa mga design team kung paano yung rectifications habang naggagawa ka ng excavations na hindi mo lalagay sa alangan yung integrity ng structures ng adjacent na building, ay dapat po natin gawin yan. Yun po.
Tama yan, sir.
So,
As far as building code is concerned.
marami
Yes.
pa lang i-comply na papel dyan, sir.
Ay, opo, sir. Katulad nga po nung yung excavation na lang itself, marami siyang napapaloob ng mga system depende dun sa sa situation nung gagawin nyo. Kaya dun sa tinatanong nyo, ganun po talaga, sir. Hindi tayo basta-basta pwede magawa kasi once nag-fail yung excavation o nagkaroon siya ng implications sa ibang structure, sir, you will be liable legally for the loss and damages of properties. Yun po yun.
Salamat po, sir.
Wala po ano man. Ay, si Ma'am Teng. Ma'am Teng.
Sir, good evening. Question lang po, regarding dun sa hazardous atmosphere, in
Yes, po.
contamination, According dito sa control measure natin, gas test should be carried out before work started and continually as work progress. Tanong ko lang po, ano yung time interval to do the gas test? Again, halimbawa, ngayon, nag-test. Ilang oras, ilang minuto ulit bago po magkakonduct ng gas test?
Ano po yan, ma'am? Depende po dun sa sitwasyon nyo and depende po dun sa risk assessment na ginawa o kung paano siya ikinover. Kasi po, ma'am, hindi po tayo pwede mag-specify ng every 2 hours, every 1 hour. Kasi kailangan po natin i-consider ano ba yung hazardous gas, ano ba yung properties niya, ano ba yung mga behavior niya, and then ano ba yung controls or yung PPE na gagamitin ng operatives na for example, kung gumagamit ka ng SCBA, yung may breathing apparatus, siyempre may time limit po yan. So we have to consider. And then yung checking and monitoring po is yung essential po yun dahil kasi pag nagkamali po tayo as per our risk assessment, magkakaroon po tayo ng incident yan. Kaya po, yung sagot ko dun sa tanong nyo, it will depend on the risk assessment done by the competent person in the organization po. And the required PPEs and the required breathing apparatus or something na kailangan natin para makontrol yung situations po.
Si-share lang
sir?
ako kay
Sir?
Ma'am Teng, no. Mag-share lang ako kay Ma'am Teng. Ma'am Teng, kasi ganito, no. One time meron kaming confined space activity, no. Then nagkanda kami ng testing, no, ng for example sa H2S, no. Then sa reading ng is ang lumabas lang ay 5, no. So ni-normalize namin yung air, nagkaroon ng ventilation, proper suitable ventilation, meron kami mga passive na ginamit. Ngayon ang after nun, pwede mo nang mag-decide kung after 10 or 15 minutes pwede ka rin mag-test. Tama yung sinasabi ni Sir Raul. Walang particular pero nasa desisyon ng gas tester yan. Ang importante, yung first test mo, nire-record mo sa permit, sa work permit mo, then lahat ng testing na ginawa mo, from time to time i-record mo siya. Pati yung kung ano yung naging reading, ganun.
Pwedeng mag-share? Sir, pwedeng mag-share?
Yes po, Sir Rene. Sige po.
Okay, sa amin kasi ang company ko is design and build ng mga sewerage So may mga kaming possible gas may encounter Ang sa amin once na may tao sa loob ng structure o any excavation na mayroong posibleng gas, in real time, yung unit mo nasa loob, nakasama mo. Usually nasa baybaywang mo para pag nag-accumulate yung gas, any toxic gas, papataas yan kasi from bottom yan, tataas. Pag nag-level na dyan sa baywang mo, mag-a-alarm na si unit. So pag nag-alarm siya, automatic mag-i-escape kayo. Hindi, pwede mo lang gawin yung interval testing pag walang tao prior to entry. Halimbawa, papasok pa lang kayo, magte-test kayo siyempre. And then, halimbawa, nag-test kayo ngayon. And then, walang pumasok. And then, after a few minutes, mga 15 minutes, papasok na kayo, testingin mo pa rin yun. Kasi nga, hindi mo alam baka after 15 minutes nagkaroon ng accumulation of gas. So yung sinasabi nating interval of test, pag walang tao, prior to entry, yun ang ginagawa natin. Pero once na nasa loob, may tao sa loob, in real time, nandun yung unit, naka-attach sa tao, para anytime nag-accumulate ang gas, any gas, toxic gas, mag-a-alarm, and then you have to escape.
Tama po. Sir, dagdagan ko lang. Tama po yung sinasabi nyo, no? Yun yung correct procedure. Ginagawa talaga natin yung initial testing, ang tawag kasi yung sinabi ko kanina, prior sa entry sa confined space. But kung meron kayong trabahador na nandun na mismo sa confined space, yun tinatawag na additional control to protect the workers, no? Kasi halimbawa, sabi nyo nasa sewer kayo, no, activity, meron nag-open ng valve doon, merong emission kagad yun ng mga H2S, which is could alarm the person, no? Para immediately, kahit kasi ang testing na initial na ginawa mo from top or even in the bottom, no, iba naman yung sa mafe-feel o may experience ng mga workers na nandun mismo sa baba. Kaya tama yung sinasabi ni Sir na dapat meron ka rin personal gas monitor. Binibigay talaga yon as part of additional control para sa mga tao. Aside from gas tester. Opo. Salamat po.
Yun ang tawag, sir, na safety first.
Napagsagot.
Yes.
Linaw po. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, paano po yung mga ibang companies na walang may provide na gas tester? Blower lang, okay na daw. May mga cases po ganito sa Pinas eh. Paano po kaya maano yung ganong sitwasyon?
Sir Bambi dyan, isasuggest ko po kapag normal kasi yung mga hindi sumusupport o nagbibigay ng resources yung ibang mga employer natin. So probably ang isang magandang maisasuggest kong strategy mo, sir, is to quote regulations or requirements ng regulatory na it requires na yung sinasabi mo. And then, kung may makukuha kang possible na mga fines or implications kapag non-compliance nito, i-attach mo rin, sir, para maipakita mo yung epekto sa management. Kasi probably yung management or employer, hindi nila alam yun. So, it is our obligations to advise our employer or the top management for this such of requirements para malagay ka rin sa tamang posisyon na kapag may nangyaring ganun is you can show informations or email or letters that you have done this and you suggested for this one and even quoting for this regulation. So, but it doesn't mean na escape ka na. Kasi po ang trabaho natin is a passion. So we need to convince them. That is the second thing. You have to convince them to follow the safety requirements para po maiwasan natin ng incident. And then pwede mo rin kasi i-explain sa kanila ano yung implication ng accident or incident. Anong cost implication yan? Reputation yan sa kumpanya. Yung meron po tayong tinatawag na hidden cost sa accident. Kaya kailangan po alam nating i-relay or i-communicate sa kumpanya natin to na ito yung possibly na pwede nating mangyari sa atin. So, yun po aking magiging suggestions po para sa iyo, Sir Pambi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Ang masama pa po niyan, sir, totoo lang, pag bilang SO, no, ayaw sumunod ng ayaw mag-provide, no. Yun yung halaga ng pagkakaroon din ng OSH committee, no. Kasi doon nadidiscuss, kaya ang batas na sa RA 11058 na merong OHS committee. Ngayon, ang committee nyo dapat monthly, meron kayong meeting. Doon dinidiscuss nyo yung mga issues and concern related sa OSH, no. At pag na-record na yan sa meeting nyo, meron ng minutes of the meeting yan, safe ka na. Pwede mo nang iba to sa management yun na i-open mo yun na kailangan yun. Pag meron nangyaring aksidente, no, pwede mong i-open yun na, sir, inanuhon natin to, talagang ni-required talaga to ng batas na i-open na natin. Meron tayong minutes, meron tayong record. So, hindi ko naman sinasabi per se na na safe ka, pero at least na-discuss mo na sa management. Kaya tama lahat ng sinasabi ni Raul, tama ang sinasabi ni Chairman Raul.
Kaya po, sir, maganda siguro mag-arrange tayo ng training naman para sa safety committee for everyone to understand the benefits of having a safety committee and what is the impact sa organization nito. So siguro, sir,
definitely,
kaya
precisely,
yes.
Gagawin natin yan. At least para talaga sa kanila yan, i-ready natin yan.
Sige po. So any further questions, guys?
So, sir, hello. Good evening.
Yes, Sir Alexander.
Sir, yung during the ongoing excavation at nakita yung construction safety officer na merong imminent danger. Okay, let's say, buried cable, tinamaan. Yung bang, halimbawa, naroon na rin yung structural engineer ba yun o civil engineer, katabi ng safety officer, sinong mas authorized na mag-declare ng safety ng stoppage work order?
Sir, as per law po, kung titignan po natin, kapag imminent danger, it will implicate operatives, damage to properties. The safety has the authority mandated to stop the activities. Bakit kamo, sir? Sir, nasa ano po yan? Nasa legal requirements po yan. Na kaya nga po tayo, mga safety practitioner, kasi alam natin kung may mga matidisgrasya. Kasi ang problema po, ang iba kasi, yung katulad ng mga engineers, they're looking for a progress sa trabaho. Okay, yung development para afterwards may billing. Ngayon tayo as safety practitioner, of course, kailangan din natin matapos yung project. But if it will involve such things like this, imminent danger na nga, then we should have the guts to stop the work. Opo. Otherwise, yes, sir.
Kinukontra kasi minsan yung ano eh.
Sir, alam mo, normal sa kanila yun, sir eh. They will further argue to you kasi pag yung in-argue ka, tumahimik ka, sir, ayan yung sistema na yan, sir eh. Kakainin ka na nila. But if you will demonstrate the sincerity, yung talagang magko-comply tayo, and then you can further explain to them na ganito yung implication niyan. Imbis na nakakatipid ka, sa huli, mas malaking cost implication yan. So we need to explain them the impact of such things. Kaya dapat po talaga tayo well-equipped po tayo sa mga katulad ng mga regulations para alam po natin kung ano yung mga sasabihin natin sa ating mga kasamahan. And yan po ay isa sa ating mga responsibilidad. Opo.
I agree with you. I agree.
Opo. Salamat po.
Okay. Yun lang po.
Katulad ng sinabi ni Sir Derwin, under section 14, and i-kinote po niya sa chat box ng DO 198-18, pwede po mag-declare ng work stoppage order. Ayan po. Yan na po, sir. Yan na po yung legal requirements. Salamat po, Sir Derwin Gako, para dito. Thank you po.
Okay. Meron po bang mga ibang tanong or chat na lang po kayo sa chat box kung hindi niyo po masabi. Okay lang po.
Parang may nagtanong kanina ron, Christian, kung confined space daw ba yung excavation? O baka pwedeng sagot natin diyan sa kanila.
Confined space sa excavation. Ilang po sir,
Otherwise, pwede natin tawagin yung nagtanong nasa chat box po na.
Ano po pangalan niya, sir? Yes po, Sir Jamal Rasul Musni. Hello po, sir. May tanong, hello po, Sir Raul. May tanong po si Sir Jamal Rasul Musni. Tinatro niya po if excavation po ba is also considered na confined space.
Okay. Ang masasabi po dyan, it depends po. Ano po bang meron sa confined space? Probably yung limited access, okay? And then yung breathable oxygen o yung presence nung mga hazardous gases. So we can consider excavation on one certain conditions na confined space po siya. Depende po sa situations. Kapag namimit na po yung requirements ng definitions o yung features ng confined space, then an excavation from that particular situation can be considered as confined space, and it requires the requirements para dun sa mga confined space. Kung kailangan ng mga breathing apparatus, permit to work, okay, yung mga sources of ignition. So then we have to follow this procedure and PTW as well. Yun po.
Ayun po. So as per sa message din po ni Sir Derwin, sabi niya po dito, excavation may consider confined space if hazards in atmosphere exist. As per federal OSHA's excavation standard 1926.651, it requires that the atmosphere be tested before employees enter excavations greater than 4 feet in depth. And if a hazardous atmosphere is found to exist, or one simply exists, then the employer must take precaution to protect workers inside the excavation, such as ventilation equipment, equipment, rescue equipment, and continued monitoring of the atmosphere while work is being performed. All steps very much like those we take when working inside of permit space, but without the permit. Thank you po. Salamat po sa information na to, Sir Derwin.
Okay. Tama. So, I guess we're done, Press. Meron ka bang something to say?
Concern dyan, raise lang po kayo ng hand or unmute na lang po kayo.
I think nasagot mo naman lahat. Malinaw na malinaw, no? Siguro, kung meron pang mga ESPO dyan na gustong mag-clear ng basta yung sinabi lang, yung pinaliwanag sa atin ni Sir Raul, no? Na start with planning, no? Sa planning stage, nandun na lahat. Kaya nga sa construction, meron yung weekly meeting. Di ba? Nag-meet kagad yung mga engineers.
We will going to reply sa mga officers and the other practitioners na pwedeng mag-reply. So that will be a good a sign of collaborations ng natin. Continuous, hindi ko sinasabing collaboration because safety is sharing. Wala pong sekreto po yan, gaya ng sinasabi ni Press. Wala pong sekreto dyan. Katulad nung ginagawa ni Sir Jerwin, nagko-coach siya ng mga legal requirements for us to understand, for us to communicate a big concrete basis dun sa mga sinasabi natin. Hindi po kasi pwede na hindi po pwede yan, stop yan, ako safety. Hindi po. Kailangan po meron tayong basis palagi. And huwag po natin gagawin na basta lang tayo magdesisyon, baka po tayo malagay sa alanganin. Kaya po kailangan natin maging practice natin na alam natin yung mga legal requirements na sinasabi. Whether national or regulatory po siya para hindi po tayo malalagay. Yes.
Tama ka ron, Sir Raul. Kaya nga, yung sa RA 11058, sa Article 1, no, sa Chapter 1 mismo, nabanggit doon, no, na kung hindi yung sufficient yung natin, yung standard sa batas, pwede tayo mag-refer international. So nire-recognize na yon, nire-recognize na ng natin, ng OSH law. Si Senior Quest Derwin, may tanong yata, nag-raise ng hand.
Actually, I just want to share lang for the benefits of everyone po. Especially, it's very good. Nagpapasalamat ako sa FILSA, especially kay Mr. Raul regarding this information. Siguro add ko na rin, especially sa mga safety officer natin, it's very important in every construction project, remember, under DO 13 po, Section 5, ano man yung activity natin, excavation, horizontal, vertical, bago simulan po yung anumang project, kinakailangan po ninyong gumawa ng Construction Safety and Health Program. Requirement po sa ating regulation. O sa CSP, papa-approve mo muna sa DOLE yan. Actually, bago kayo magsimula sa anumang pong project, hahanapin yan. Dapat approve ng DOLE. And then, yun po yung isa sa mga document dito sa Pilipinas na dapat isasubmit mo sa City Engineering Office bago ka nila ma-issuance ng construction permit. Mahalaga po yan Kasi diyan naka-identify, yun sinasabi ni Sir Albino kanina, yung kahalagahan ng Health and Safety Committee, nakalagay doon. Naka-item po lahat ng mga dapat na program na meron kayo. Kung kasama ang excavation, isasama mo siya sa program mo. Dapat nga, sabi nga ni Sir Raul, prior to start, meron po dapat na checking muna lahat or inspection, ocular at yung mga necessary permit. By the way, hindi lang po excavation. Any involved, okay, na activity in construction, dapat meron siyang kasama doon sa program. So to give you idea, you can download po sa website po ng Occupational Safety and Health Center yung template ng Construction Safety and Health Program na makakatulong sa atin ng mga safety officer. Importante po yan at nire-required din po ng batas natin. Ang company, maliban sa Construction Safety Program na every project na meron tayo, ang company natin dapat meron din po tayong approved Occupational Safety and Health Program. Yan po, nasa DO 198 na rin po yan. Yan po yung IRR ng RA 11058. Actually, napakaganda ng batas natin, lalo na yung mga concern kanina, yung mga hazard. Gusto kong idagdag kanina, ang worker kapag exposed po siya sa hazard na hindi binigay po ng company o ng employer yung control, meron po siyang karapatan na tumanggi sa trabaho na hindi po siya makaka-receive ng anumang pong reprimand. Protektado siya ng batas. Maging ang safety officer pag nag-declare siya ng WSO o work stoppage order, basta meron pong imminent danger, protektado ka rin po ng batas. Kasi ikaw safety officer ka, you will act as an advisor or internal consultant of the company, sinisigurado mo na protektado ang tao. Kaya maraming salamat sa FILSA, lalo kay Sir Raul, dito pa sa mga information na to. Your suggest ko lang, check ninyo yung requirements of construction safety and health.
Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat
Maraming
po.
salamat,
Chris,
sir.
pakikamusta na lang kay Engineer Robina.
Ay, nasa Canada po siya ngayon. Okay, sige po.
Ganun
Sige.
Salamat po. Maraming salamat.
Salamat, Sir Derwin.
Sir,
Salamat.
question,
Maganda yan
sir.
Actually, nakakatuwa, no? Meron tayong mga consultant, mga SO na nandito, no? Na nagbibigay tayo ng share. Ito isa sa layunin talaga ng FILSA, no? Kung sasamahan nyo kami lagi, patuloy kayong susuporta sa mga trainings natin or magjo-join po kayo sa grupo. Ang purpose po talaga ng FILSA is to elevate yung standards ng quality health safety sa Pilipinas. So, kung magiging advocate po kayo, magiging safety advocate, bukod doon sa natututo ho kayo, nakakatulong po kayo, no, na sa bansa natin, no. So sana ho patuloy niyo kami suportahan at samahan niyo kami. Yung sinabi ni Sir Raul, yun isa sa prinsipyo namin, sa safety po walang secret kasi buhay ho ng tao ang nakataya diyan, no. So sinabi na naman ho na ni Sir Christian yung kung paano po maging member. So muli po iniimbitahan ho namin kay personal na ako bilang presidente ng FILSA ay nagsasabi sa inyo na mag-join ho kayo, hindi ho kayo magsisisi dahil itong organisasyon na to hanggang mag-abroad kayo, madadala nyo, magagamit nyo po. Sige po, balik po ako kay Papa Raul po, yung lecturer.
Sir, question lang, sir. Sir, question, sir.
Sige po.
Sir, follow up to sa sinabi ni Sir Darwin, sir.
Sige po.
Si Sir Darwin, instructor ko si Sir Darwin sa Senior West. Training consultant si Sir Darwin. Si Delphin po to, yung estudyante niyo, sir.
Ay, thank you, sir. Ano pa pala ako? Thank you, sir.
Graduate instructor po kayo sa Senior West, sa Spice.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, in relation sa sinabi niyo, sir, tama talaga merong CHCP sa requirement. Pero naging safety officer ako, sir. Nakita ko yung CHP sinasubmit sa regional director for a final approval. Tama po ba, sir?
Ganyan po, nagkaroon sila ng memorandum na hindi na po tayo magsasubmit sa regional. Pwede na po sa satellite office. Actually, last time nagkaroon ako ng project sa Bulacan. Akala ko, hindi ko nga nakabasa kagad yung memorandum na to. Nag-submit ako sa Region 3 sa San Fernando. Sinabihan ako sa Fernando, Pampanga. Buto na lang kaibigan natin yun doon. Punta ka ng Malolos, Derek, sabi sa akin. Kaya alam, bitin ako sa oras. Good thing is kaibigan natin dito sa Region 3. O sige, sila na mismo nag-assess. Pero ngayon daw po, may memorandum na sila. Any satellite office. And by the way, ngayon dahil pandemic tayo, pwede siyang online submission.
So, online submission na, sir. Okay, good. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Salamat. Thank you very much, Sir Darwin. Salamat po.
Welcome po. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Presidente Sir Albino. Salamat po.
Salamat din po, Sir Delphin. Na-miss ko po kayo. Opo.
Okay, sir. Medyo na busy sa trabaho.
Okay. Sir Raul, meron pa pong tanong dito, mga 2 questions na lang. Meron pong tanong galing po kay Ma'am Ruby Glenn. Sir, prior sa entry ng confined space, knowing na mababa talaga ang oxygen, ano yung mauuna? Gas test or ventilation?
Ang good practice po kasi, meron tayong tinatawag na good practice and then requirements talaga. And then kung anin man yung nasa safe system of work ng organizations, we have to refer to that one. Pero kung talaga, lagi pong nauuna, prior any activities, should have this gas testing nung atmosphere. And then, gaya ng sinasabi ng ating mga kasamahan dito, good practice nila yung kapag meron ng meter, meron silang reader na nakasama dun sa mga operatives. So yun po yun. We have to assess, and then ano pa rin po yan, magre-refer back pa rin po tayo dun sa risk assessment po. Hindi po tayo pwede basta-basta mag-assume or assume na ganito. We have to refer dun sa ano yung safe system of work natin, ano yung risk assessment natin, ano yung requirements. So we have to check on this bago. Pero as good practice nga po, ganun sinabi ko, gas testing na tayo antimano. And then, dagdagan na natin ng additional control. Yun po.
Okay. Okay na po ba yan, Ma'am Ruby?
Opo, thank you po.
Okay. And also, Sir Raul, meron pa pong isang questions galing sa Facebook page natin from Gerald Bravo. Do you ever check excavation prior dewatering if there is possible loose energized cable, and how?
Pakiulit nga po, sir.
Do you ever check excavation prior dewatering if there is possible loose energized cable, and how?
Yan po, katulad nga po, kung bago tayo, I will tell situational po yan. So, we have to respond situational din po. Kung halimbawa merong loose na mga power, kailangan immediate, kung kaya nating makat, through isolation yung source of energy na yun, gawin po natin para hindi siya mag-implicate ng incident, and then saka natin i-address yung dewatering na requirements. So, kailangan lang po natin priority kung ano talaga yung eminent or yung priority. And then, so para i-carry out natin yung safe system of work natin. Yun po, tsaka dyan na din po pumapasok kung hindi man po siya naka-refer dun sa risk assessment. Mag-JSA po tayo dyan, Job Safety Analysis. So, for that particular situations, bago natin gawin yung i-carry out yung activity.
Yun ang tawag, sir, coordination.
Yes, sir.
Proper coordination.
Opo, tama po. So I guess we can...
Yes, may message yata si Alexander. Pwede pa sandali. At least after nun, pwede na tayo siguro magpahinga. Oo. Last na lang po. Sir Alexander, sige po. The floor is yours po.
Okay, good evening. May kasama yata tayo nakikinig na babae. Ladies and gentlemen na lang. Sa aking work experience sa safety po, bale, different industries, airport, 4 na airport sa Saudi Arabia, isang oil refinery, Yandu. And then, nagtrabaho rin po ako sa Riyadh Hospital, 3 years and 4 months. Nagtrabaho din ako yung pinakabagong syudad sa Saudi Arabia, kung alam niyo na yun, King Abdullah Economic City. 2 taon, nagtrabaho din ako po doon sa King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. Yan lang po ang experience ko abroad. Dito naman sa Pilipinas, sa Pagbilao Power Plant, 3 years, 2 months. sa Lucena, sa Pagbilao. Dito naman, dito sa Swal Power Plant, which is in Swal, Pangasinan, 11 years and 4 months. So, ibig sabihin po ay talaga, devoted ako sa mga safety aspects po. Yan po ang pwede kong i-share kung ano yung mga katanungan, pwede po ako magsalita po tungkol sa advokasya ng safety, lalo na sa kalusugan. And now, ito naman, freelancer po ako na trainer in Baguio City, Pangasinan. So, yan po, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang aking pag-aaral, pagtuturo tungkol sa kaligtasan at kalusugan. So, yan po yung aking, kung mayroong mga katulungan tungkol sa mga ganyan, safety, health, and environment. Nakarang buwan, nakatapos din yung pollution control officer naman. Online naman po yan. So, ibig sabihin po, tuloy-tuloy po yung pag-aaral natin na po. Tungkol lang po sa kaligtasan at kalusugan sa ating mga kapwa. Yan lang po ako mag-share.
Sir Alex, matanong ko lang po, OSHP po ba kayo? OSH practitioner po kayo, consultant na sa Pilipinas?
OSH practitioner po ng 7 years na mula sa
Okay po,
Pagbilao.
okay po. Mag-join po kayo sa FILSA po para po makatulong po kayo sa safety advocacy po natin. Welcome na welcome po kayo sa amin. Kasi imbis na email kayo ng iba, tanungin, open po itong Zoom namin para sa mga gustong magkaroon ng exposure, mahasa, maririnig ko kayo ng mas marami. Opo.
Ay narito lang po ako. Ay kung loloobin po ng Diyos na maabot ko yung 120 years. Mahaba yung 120 years ha.
Okay po, salamat po. Salamat po, sir. Salamat. Sige po, moderator, Sir Christian. Apo.
Okay, sir. Sir Raul, may sasabihin po ba kayo, Sir Raul?
Okay, bilang pangwakas na remarks lang po, in behalf of ng FILSA, I would like to thank everyone for attending our sessions today. And being the chairperson on the membership, I would like to encourage as well to everyone to go for our membership and to get the full benefits of having a FILSA members. And then, mabuhay po kayong lahat. Marami pong salamat.
Okay, maraming salamat po, sir.
Salamat po, Sir Raul. Salamat po.